Welcome to Venezuela Insider, the only place in Venezuela for expats, digital nomads, entrepreneurs, investors, travelers, and related internationals. For more information, venezuelainsider.com. Today we're talking about remittance here in Venezuela, how are shaping the economy or how they help out to reshape the Venezuelan economy. So we have a couple of data, couple of numbers regarding migration and remittances here in Venezuela and how are affecting the Venezuelan economy. So let's start. So first, let's start mentioning that right now, according to some data, according to an economic study, we have 7.1 million Venezuelan migrants all over the world, mostly on Colombia, the first one. We already mentioned, we covered that on a previous video, mentioning where are the Venezuelan migrants, but mostly on Colombia, some other places in Latin America, the US with over 500,000, several hundred thousands in Western Europe, and so on. So, according to this data, on 2022, we have 7.1 million Venezuelan migrants all over the world, and you have to add the 28 million Venezuelans right now in the country. But also the growth of Venezuelan migrants all over the world has been staggering since the 1990s, because on the year 1990, we had only 185,000 migrants, so less than 1% of the population. And right now we're over 20% of the Venezuelan population that basically lives abroad. So that number alone is staggering. But now let's talk about the remittances. And of course, if you don't know, remittance is the money that any given migrant sends to his or her original country of birth, previous country of residence, to their families in order to help out the, let's say, domestic situation on their previous household. Let's say a younger man that comes from a poorer family goes to a richer country, let's say United States, starts working over there, let's say as a waiter or as a gardener, some cases as a professional, and start sending money to their home country. And basically that's a phenomenon that you see on less developed economies like Mexico, Colombia, basically every place in Latin America, but also you see it on India, on China, also on Eastern Europe, on Sub-Saharan Africa, even Northern African countries as well. Well, that money is very significant on those economies. But lately, since Venezuela on the past decade has become Venezuela has become a net exporter of human capital. Right now, the number is $4.2 billion on remittances coming to Venezuela on 2022, according to this estimate. That represents around 7% of GDP. So it's an important number. On nominal terms, Venezuela is not as important regarding remittances in Latin America. Usually the poorer countries, I'm talking maybe like Honduras, maybe like Guatemala, and like Haiti, where can represent double digits of GDP on remittances. But Venezuela is become important on the past 5 or 6 years. So 2.5 million households here in Venezuela receive remittance. That's 29% of households in Venezuela. And according to this data, 38% of the remittances or the remittances that come to Venezuela comes from the United States. And that is significant because the United States only has 12 of the Venezuelan migrants, although that proportion is rising up because Venezuelan migrants on the rest of Latin America, I'm talking Chile, I'm talking Peru, I'm talking Colombia, I'm talking even Mexico, they are starting to migrate from, let's say, these other Latin American nations, especially the less developed Latin American nations, and starting to migrate to a third country, usually the United States or on Western Europe, but mostly on the United States. So keep that in mind. Now, other thing that you have to keep in mind is that the remittances here in Venezuela are not arriving on the traditional channels that are used for this purpose, like using Western Union, that's by far the biggest company on this endeavor, on this business operation, but they are doing so on informal channels. Could be just through account, on relatives or acquaintances that use those, let's say, US accounts in order to deposit such remittance. So it's very indirectly, and of course, the family member that received is the last one to receive such remittance. They just being handed out the money on cash throughout an acquaintance. So only 5% of the remittance are through the formal channel, like Western Union. And also, you have to keep in mind that lately it's been using these new fintech applications like, let's say, PayPal or Wise, although Wise is not used here in Venezuela. But PayPal and such, and all of the variants that we are able to use here in Venezuela, because many are blocked for Venezuelan citizens. And also cryptocurrencies are being used as well in applications like Binance. Very good. Now, how does affect the Venezuelan economy? Well, first, on 2018, I would say the bottom of the crisis, we hit the bottom economically on 2018. And by then, the remittances, because the economy was totally depressed, and on that year was a shift on the mindset of the average Venezuelan and also the Venezuelan economy overall. First, with the de facto dollarization of the Venezuelan economy, but also because the economy was so depressed back then that those remittances back then it was around 3 billion, a little bit more of 3 billion US dollars on remittances. It was even more important back then. That helped to propel the demand up again, and that created more supply. That's what we have. We have more supply of goods and services here today on 2023 that we have back then on 2018. So for one hand, that's important. Right now, remittances are not as important as a proportion of the economy. However, they are still important on lower income households here in Venezuela in order to still keeping propping up the demand for basic goods and services, what is propelling the appearance of new companies, new entrepreneurship, or the reopening, or the big and old companies that still operate here in Venezuela, private companies, and are reactivating maybe new branches, maybe new business endeavors all over the country. So the impact on the remittances here in Venezuela on the economic side has been very good, has propelled the demand, and from one way to the other has created some a significant supply on the past 5 years. Thank you for watching Venezuela Insider. Please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on social media. If you want to work with us, VenezuelaInsider.com. Thanks again and have a nice day.